Part 2, Diary of a Journey the Netherlands, July, 1520 July, 1521. Anno 1520. On Thursday after St. Kilian's Day, I, Albrecht Durer, at my own charges and costs, took myself and my wife from Nuremberg away to the Netherlands, and the same day, after we had passed through Ariangen, we put up for the night at Beiersdorf, and spent there 3 crowns, less 6 pfennigs. From thence on the next day, Friday, we came to Forchheim, and there paid for the conveying thence on the journey to Bamberg 22 pf, and presented to the bishop a painted Virgin, and a Life of the Virgin, and Apocalypse, and a florin's worth of engravings. He invited me to be his guest, gave me a toll pass, and 3 letters of introduction, and settled my bill at the inn, where I had spent about a florin. I paid 6 florins in gold to the boatman, who took me from Bamberg to Frankfurt. Master Lucas Benedict and Hans the painter sent me a present of wine. Spent 4 pf for bread and 13 pf as tips. Then I journeyed from Bamberg to Eltmann, and showed my pass, and they let me go free. And from there we passed by Zeil. In the meantime I spent 21 pf. Next I came to Hasfurt, and showed my pass, and they let me go without paying duty. I paid 1 florin to the Bishop of Bamberg's chancery. Next I came to theirs to the monastery, and I showed my pass, and they also let me go free. Then we journeyed to Lower Urheim. There I stayed the night and spent IPF. Thence we went to Meinberg, and I showed my papers, and was allowed to pass. Then we came to Schweinfurt, where Dr. George Rebart invited me, and he gave us wine. In the boat, they let me also pass free. 10 pf for a roast fowl, 18 pf in the kitchen, and to the boy. Then we traveled to Volkach, and I showed my pass, and we went on and came to Schwarzach, and there we stopped the night, and spent 22 pf, and on Monday we were up early and went towards Hedobach, and came to Kitzingen, and I showed my letter, and they let me go on, and I spent 37 pf. After that we went past Salzfeld to Marktbreit, and I showed my letter, and they let me through, and we traveled by Frickenhausen to Oxenfurt, where I showed my pass and they let me go free, and we came to Eibelstadt, and from that to Heidingsfeld, and thence to Würzburg. There I showed my pass, and they let me go free. Thence we journeyed to Erlabrunn, and stopped the night there, and I spent 22 pf. From that we journeyed on past Ratsbath, and Zellingen, and came to Karlstadt. Here I showed my pass, and they let me go on. Thence I traveled to Gmunden, and there we breakfasted, and spent 22 pf. I also showed my pass, and they let me go free. We traveled thence to Hofstetten. I showed my pass, and they let me through. We came next to Lohr, where I showed my pass, and passed on. From there we came to Neustadt, and showed our letter, and they let us travel on. Also I paid 10 pf for wine and crabs. From there we came to Rotenfels, and I showed my pass, and they let me go free, and we stayed there for a night, and spent 20 pf, and on Wednesday early we started, and passed by St. Oikeridas, and came to Heidenfeld, and thence to Triefenstein. From there we came to Hamburg, where I showed my pass, and they let me through. From there we came to Wertheim, and I showed my letter, and they let me go free. And I spent 57 pf. From there we went to Proselten. Here I showed my pass, and they let me through. Next we went on past Freudenberg, where I showed my letter once more, and they let me through. From there we came to Miltenberg, and stayed there overnight, and I also showed my pass, and they let me go. And I spent 61 pf. From there we came to Klingenberg. I showed my pass and they let me through, and we came to Worth, and from there past Obernburg to Aschaffenburg. Here I presented my pass, and they let me through, and I spent 52 pf. From there we journeyed on to Selgenstadt, from there to Steinheim, where I showed my letter, and they let me go on, and we stayed with Johannes for the night, who showed us the town, and was very friendly to us. There I spent 16 pf. And so early on Friday morning we traveled to Kesselstadt, where I showed my pass, and they let me go on. From there we came to Frankfurt, and I showed my pass again, and they let me through, and I spent 6 white pf. And 1 thaler and a half, and I gave the boy 2 white pf. Herr Jacob Heller gave me some wine at the inn. I bargained to be taken with my goods from Frankfurt to Mainz for 1 florin and to White PF, and I also gave the lad 5 Frankfurt thaler, and for the night we spent 8 White PF. On Sunday I traveled by the early boat from Frankfurt to Mainz, and midway there we came to Hochst, where I showed my pass, and they let me go on. I spent 8 Frankfurt PF there. From there we journeyed to Mainz. I have also paid I White PF for landing my things, besides 14 Frankfurt thaler to the boatman, and 18 PF for a girdle, and I took passage in the Cologne boat for myself and my things for 3 florins, and at Mainz also I spent 17 White PF. Peter Goldschmidt, the warden there, gave me 2 bottles of wine. Weitwarnbühler invited me, but his host would take no payment from him, insisting on being my host himself. They showed me much honor. So I started from Mainz, where the Main flows into the Rhine, and it was the Monday after Mary Magdalene's Day, and I paid 10 thaler for meat and bread, and for eggs and pears 9 thaler. Here, too, Leonhard Goldschmidt gave me wine and fowls in the boat to cook on the way to Cologne. Master Jobst's brother likewise gave me a bottle of wine, and the painters gave me 2 bottles of wine in the boat. From there we came to Elfeld, where I showed my letter, and they took no toll. From there we came to Rudesheim, and I gave 2 White PF for loading the boat. Then we came to Ehrenfels, and there I showed my letter, but I had to give 2 gold florins. If, however, I were to bring them a free pass within 2 months, the customs officer would give me back the 2 gold florins. From there we came to Bacharach, and there I had to promise in writing that I would either bring them a free pass in 2 months, or pay the toll. From there we came to Cobb, and there again I showed my pass, but it would carry me no further, and I had to promise in writing. As before, there I spent 11 thaler. Next we came to St. Goar, and here I showed my pass, and the customs officer asked me how they had treated me elsewhere, so I said I would pay him nothing. I gave 2 White PF to the messenger. From there we came to Bappert, and I showed my pass to the Trier custom house officer, and they let me go through, only I had to certify in writing under my seal that I carried no common merchandise, and then the man let me go willingly. From there we came to Lonstein, and I showed my pass, and the customs officer let me go through, but he asked me that I should speak for him to my most gracious lord of Mainz, and he gave me a can of wine, too, for he knew my wife well, and he was glad to see me. From there we came to Engers, which is in the Trier territory. I presented my pass, and they let me go through. I said, too, that I would mention it to my lord of Bamberg. From there we came to Andernach, and I showed my pass, and they let me go through, and I spent there 7 thaler, and 4 thaler more. Then on St. James's Day early I travelled from Andernach to Linz. From there we went to the custom house at Bonn, and there again they let me go through. From there we came to Cologne, and in the boat I spent 9 White PF, and I more, and 4 PF for fruit. At Cologne I spent 7 White PF for unloading, to the boatman 14 thaler, and to Nicholas, my cousin, I made a present of my black fur-lined coat edged with velvet, and to his wife I gave a florin. Also at Cologne Fugger gave me wine, Johann Grosserpecker also gave me wine, and my cousin Nicholas gave me wine. They gave us also a collation at the Barefoot Convent, and one of the monks gave me a handkerchief. Moreover, Herr Johann Grosserpecker has given me 12 measures of the best wine, and I paid 2 White PF, and 8 thaler, to the boy. I have spent besides at Cologne 2 florins, and 14 White PF, and 10 White PF, for packing, and 3 PF for fruit. Further, I gave I PF at leaving, and I White PF to the messenger. From there we journeyed on St. Basilion's Day from Cologne to a village called Busdorf. We lay there overnight and spent 3 White PF, and early on Sunday we travelled to Rottingen, where we had breakfast, and spent 2 White PF, and 3 PF more, and again 3 PF. Thence we came to Freialdenhoven, where we lay the night, and spent 3 White PF. Thence we travelled early on Monday to Frellenberg, and passed the little town of Gongelt, breakfasting at a village called Stisterseal, and spent 2 White PF 2 thaler, further 1 White PF, and again 2 White PF. From there we journeyed to Sittard, a pretty little town, and from there to Stocken, which belongs to Liege, where we had to find an inn, and stayed there overnight, and spent 4 White PF. And when we had crossed over the Moss we started off early on Tuesday morning, and came to Merton-Lubadensick. There we had breakfast, and spent 2 stivers, and gave a White PF for a young fowl. From there we travelled across the heath and came to Stosser, where we spent 2 stivers, and lay there the night. From thence on Wednesday morning early we travelled to Westmeerbeck, where I paid 3 stivers for bread and wine, and we went on as far as Brantog, where we had breakfast, and spent 1 stiver. From there we travelled to Eilenberg, where we stayed the night, and spent 3 stivers. From there we travelled on Thursday early to Optenkois, where we breakfasted, and spent 2 stivers. Thence we came to Antwerp. There I sent to Jobst Plankveldsen, and the same evening the Fuggers factor, by name Bernhard Stecker, invited me, and gave us a costly meal. My wife dined at the inn. I paid the driver for bringing us 3 florins in gold, and 2 stivers, for carrying the goods. On Saturday after the feast of St. Peter in Chains, my host took me to see the burgomaster's house at Antwerp, which is newly built, and large beyond measure, very well arranged with extraordinarily beautiful large rooms, a tower, splendidly ornamented, a very large garden, in short, such a noble house as I have never seen in all German lands. A very long new street has been built in his honor, and with his assistance, leading up to the house on both sides. I gave 3 stivers to the messenger, and 2 pf for bread, and 2 pf for ink, and on Sunday, which was St. Oswald's Day, the painters invited me to their hall with my wife and maid, where everything was of silver, and they had other costly ornaments, and very costly meats, and all their wives were there too, and, as I was being led to the table, every one on both sides stood up as if they were leading some great lord. There were among them men of high position, who all showed me the greatest respect, and bowed low to me, and said they would do everything in their power to serve and please me. And, as I sat there in honor, there came the messenger of the town council of Antwerp, with 2 servants, and presented to me 4 cans of wine from the magistrates of Antwerp, who told him to say that they wished thereby to show their respect for me, and to assure me of their goodwill. Wherefore I returned them my humble thanks, and offered my humble services. Thereupon came Master Peter, the town carpenter, and gave me 2 cans of wine with offer of his willing service. So when we had spent a long time together merrily, till late into the night, they accompanied us home with lanterns in great honor. They begged me to be assured of their goodwill, and promised that in whatever I did they would help me in every way. So I thanked them, and laid down to sleep. Also I have been in Master Quentin's house, and I have been in all the 3 great shooting places. Editor's note: Quentin Matses, the painter. I had a very splendid dinner at Stabers. Another time at the Portuguese factor's, whose portrait I have drawn in charcoal. I have made a portrait of my host as well. Jobst Plankfeld gave me a branch of white coral, paid 2 stivers for butter, and 2 stivers to the joiner at the painter's armory. Also my host took me to the painter's workshop in the armory at Antwerp, where they are making the triumphal arches through which King Charles is to make his entry. It is 400 bows in length, and each arch is 40 feet wide. They are to be set up on both sides of the streets, beautifully arranged, and 2 stories high, and on them they are to act the plays, and this costs to make 4,000 florins for the joiners and painters, and the whole work is very magnificently done. I have dined again with the Portuguese factor, and once with Alexander Imhoff. Sebald Fischer bought of me at Antwerp 16 small passions, for 4 florins, 32 of the large books, for 8 florins, also 6 engraved passions, for 3 florins, also 20 half-sheets of all kinds taken together at 1 florin, to the value of 3 florins, and again 5 and 1/4 florins worth of quarter sheets, 45 of all kinds at 1 florin, and 8 miscellaneous leaves at 1 florin. It is paid. To my host I have sold a Madonna picture, painted on small canvas, for 2 florins Rhenish. I took once more the portrait of Felix the lute player. 1 stiver for pears and bread, 2 stivers to the surgeon barber. Besides I have given 14 stivers for 3 small panels, besides 4 stivers for laying in the white and preparing them. I have dined once with Alexander the goldsmith, and once with Felix Hungersberg. Once Master Joachim has eaten with me, and his partner also once. I have made a drawing in half colors for the painters. I have taken 1 florin for expenses. I made Peter Wolfgang a present of 4 new little pieces. Master Joachim's partner has again dined with me. I gave Master Joachim 1 florin's worth of prints for lending me his apprentice and colors, and I gave his apprentice 3 crowns worth of prints. I have sent the 4 new pieces to Alexander, the goldsmith. I made charcoal portraits of these Genoese by name. Thomasin Florianus from Munus, native of Lucca, and his two brothers, named Vincentius and Gerhard, all three Bombelli. I have dined with Thomasin so often, The treasurer also gave me a child's head on linen, and a weapon from Calicut, and one of the light wood reeds. Thomasin Imhoff has also given me a plated hat of elder pith. I dined once more with the Portuguese. I also gave one of Thomasin's brothers 3 florins worth of engravings. Her Erasmus has given me a small Spanish mantilla, and 3 portraits of men. Thomasin's brother gave me a pair of gloves for 3 florins worth of engravings. I have once more made the portrait of Thomasin's brother Vincentius, and I gave Master Augustus Lombard 2 of the Imagines. Moreover, I made a portrait of the crooked-nosed Italian named Opetus. Also my wife and maid dined one day at her Thomasin's, that makes 4 meals. Our Lady's Church at Antwerp is so vast that many masses may be sung there at one time, without interfering one with another. The altars are richly endowed, the best musicians that can be had are employed, the church has many devout services, and much stonework, and in particular a beautiful tower. I also visited the rich abbey of St. Michael, where are the finest galleries of stonework that I have ever seen, and a rich throne in the choir. But at Antwerp they spare no cost in such things, for they have plenty of money. I have made a portrait of Hernicles, an astronomer, who lives with the King of England, and is very helpful, and of great service to me in many matters. He is a German, a native of Munich. Also I have made the portrait of Thomasin's daughter, maid Zuta by name. Hans Pfaffroth gave me a Phillips florin for taking his portrait in charcoal. I have dined once more with Thomasin. My host's brother-in-law entertained me and my wife once. I changed 2 light florins for 24 stivers, for living expenses, and I gave 1 stiver for a tip to a man, who let me see an altarpiece. The Sunday after the feast of the Assumption I saw the great procession of Our Lady's Church at Antwerp, where all the whole town was gathered together, with all the trades and professions, and each was dressed in his best according to his rank. Every guild and profession had its sign by which it might be recognized. Between the companies were carried great costly gold pole candlesticks, and their long old Frankish silver trumpets, and there were many pipers and drummers, in the German fashion. All were loudly and noisily blown and beaten. I saw the procession pass along the street, spread far apart so that they took up much space crossways, but close behind one another, goldsmiths, painters, stone cutters, broiderers, sculptors, joiners, carpenters, sailors, fishermen, butchers, leatherworkers, clothmakers, bakers, tailors, shoemakers, and all kinds of craftsmen and workmen who work for their livelihood. There were likewise shopkeepers and merchants, with their assistants of all sorts. After them came the marksmen with their guns, bows, and crossbows, then the horsemen and foot soldiers. Then came a large company of the town guard, then a fine troop of very gallant men, nobly and splendidly costumed. Before them, however, went all the religious orders, and the members of some foundations, very devoutly, in their respective groups. There was, too, in this procession, a great troop of widows, who support themselves by their own labor, and observe special rules, all dressed from head to foot in white linen robes made expressly for the occasion, very sorrowful to behold. Among them I saw some very stately persons, the canons of Our Lady's Church, with all their clergy, scholars, and treasures. 20 persons bore the image of the Virgin Mary, and of the Lord Jesus, adorned in the richest manner, to the honor of the Lord God. The procession included many delightful things splendidly got up. For example, many wagons were drawn along with stagings of ships, and other constructions. Then there came the company of the prophets, in their order, and scenes from the New Testament, such as the Annunciation, the 3 magi riding great camels, and other strange beasts, very skillfully arranged, and also how Our Lady fled into Egypt, very conducive to devotion, and many other things which for shortness I must leave out. Last of all came a great dragon, which Saint Margaret and her maidens led by a girdle. She was extraordinarily beautiful. Behind her followed a Saint George, with his squire, a very fine cuirassier. There also rode in the procession many pretty and richly dressed boys and girls, in the costumes of many lands representing various saints. This procession from beginning to end, where it passed our house, lasted more than 2 hours. There were so many things there that I could not write them in a book, so I let it alone. I visited Fugger's house in Antwerp, which is newly built, with a wonderful tower, broad and high, and with a beautiful garden, and I also saw his fine stallions. Thomason has given my wife 14 ells of good thick arras for a mantle, and 3½ ells of half satin tolinet. I drew a design for ladies for a band for the goldsmith. The Portuguese factor has given me a present of wine in the inn, both Portuguese and French. Signor Rodrigo of Portugal has given me a small cask full of all sorts of sweetmeats, amongst them a box of sugar candy, besides 2 large dishes of barley sugar, marchpane, many other kinds of sugar work, and some sugar canes just as they grow. I gave his servant in return 1 florin as a tip. I have again changed for my expenses a light florin for 12 stivers. The pillars in the convent of St. Michael of Antwerp are all made out of single blocks of a beautiful black touchstone. Her Egidius, King Charles's warden, has taken for me from Antwerp the St. Jerome, in a cell, the Melancholy, and 3 new Marys, the Anthony, and the Veronica, for the good sculptor, Master Conrad, whose like I have not seen. He serves Lady Margaret, the Emperor's daughter. Also I gave Master Fagidius a Eustace, and a Nemesis. I owe my host 7 florins, 20 stivers, I thaler, that is, on Sunday before St. Bartholomew, for sitting room, bedroom, and bedding. I am to pay him 11 florins a month. I came to a new agreement with my host on the 20th of August, on the Monday before St. Bartholomew's. I am to eat with him and pay 2 stivers for the meal, and extra for drink, but my wife and the maid can cook and eat up here. I gave the Portuguese factor a statuette of a child. Besides that, I gave him an Adamantive, a Jerome, in his cell, a Hercules, a Eustace, a Melancholy, and a Nemesis. Then of the half-sheets, 3 new Virgins, the Veronica, the Anthony, the Nativity, and the Crucifixion. Also the best of the quarter-sheets, 8 pieces, and then the 3 books of the life of the Virgin, the Apocalypse, and the Great Passion, also the Little Passion, and the Passion on copper. Altogether, 5 florins worth. The same quantity I gave to Signor Rodrigo, the other Portuguese. Rodrigo has given my wife a small green parrot. Visit to Brussels. On the Sunday after St. Bartholomew's, I travelled with Herr Thomason from Antwerp to Mechlin, where we lay for the night. There I invited Master Conrad, and a painter with him to supper. And this Master Conrad is the good carver in Lady Margaret's service. From Mechlin we travelled through the small town of Vilvoorde, and came to Brussels on Monday at midday. I gave the messenger 3 stivers. I dined with my lords at Brussels, also once with Herbenicius, and I gave him a Passion on copper. I gave the Margrave Hansen of Brussels the letter of recommendation which my lord of Bamberg wrote for me, and I made him a present of a Passion, engraved on copper for a remembrance. I have also dined once more with my lords of Nuremberg. I saw in the town hall at Brussels, in the Golden Chamber, 4 paintings which the great master Ogier did, and behind the King's Palace in Brussels, the fountains, labyrinth, zoological garden. Anything more beautiful and pleasing to me, more like a paradise, I have never seen. Erasmus is the name of the little man editor's note, not Erasmus of Rotterdam, but a clerk of Vinicius, who wrote out my supplication at Jacob Ben Nice's house. At Brussels there is a very splendid town hall, large and covered with beautiful stonework, with a noble open tower. I have made a portrait of Master Conrad of Brussels by candlelight. He is my host. At the same time I drew Dr. Lamparter's son in charcoal, and also the hostess. Also I have seen the things which they have brought to the king, out of the new land of gold, a sun all of gold, a whole fathom broad, and a moon, too, of silver, of the same size, also 2 rooms full of armor, and the people there with all manner of wondrous weapons, harness, darts, wonderful shields, extraordinary clothing, beds, and all kinds of wonderful things for human use, much finer to look at than prodigies. These things are all so precious that they are valued at 100,000 gulden, and all the days of my life I have seen nothing that reaches my heart so much as these, for among them I have seen wonderfully artistic things, and have admired the subtle ingenuity of men in foreign lands. Indeed, I don't know how to express what I there found. I also saw many other beautiful things at Brussels, and especially a great fishbone there, as vast as if it had been built up of square stones. It was a fathom long, very thick, weighs up to 1 cwt, 15 centner, and it has the form, as is here drawn. It stood behind on the fish's head. I have also been in the Lord of Nassau's house, which is so magnificently built, and so beautifully decorated. I have again dined twice with my lords. Lady Margaret sent after me to Brussels, and promised that she would speak in my behalf to King Charles, and has shown herself quite exceptionally kind to me. I sent her my engraved Passion, and such another to her treasurer, Jan Marnix by name, and I made his portrait in charcoal. I paid 2 stivers for a buffalo ring, and also 2 stivers for opening St. Luke's picture. When I was in Herr von Nassau's house, I saw in the chapel a fine painting that Master Hugo has made, and I also saw 2 large beautiful halls, and all the treasures in various parts of the house, and the large bed in which 50 men can lie. And I also saw the great stone which the storm cast down in the field close to Herr von Nassau. This house lies high, and there is a most beautiful view at which one cannot but wonder. And I think that in all German lands there is not the like of it. Master Bernhard, the painter, invited me to dinner, and had prepared a meal so costly that I do not think 10 florins will pay for it. 3 friends invited themselves to it to give me good company, to wit, Lady Margaret's treasurer, whose portrait I made, and the king's steward, Demetni, and the town treasurer, Van Busleyden. I gave him a Passion engraved on copper, and he gave me in return a black Spanish bag worth 3 florins. And I also gave a Passion engraved on copper to Erasmus of Rotterdam, likewise one to Erasmus, the secretary of Benesis. The man at Antwerp who gave me the child's head is called Lorenstruck. I took the portrait in charcoal of Master Bernhard, Lady Margaret's painter. I have taken Erasmus of Rotterdam's portrait once more. I gave Lorenstruck a sitting Saint Jerome, and the Melancholy, and I made a portrait of my hostess's godmother. 6 people whose portraits I painted at Brussels gave me nothing. I paid 3 stivers for 2 buffalo horns, and 1 stiver for 2 Eulenspiegels. So then on the Sunday after St. Giles, I travelled with Herr Thomas into Mechlin, and took leave of Herr Hans Ebner, and he would take nothing for my expenses. While I was with him 7 days, I paid 1 stiver on behalf of Hans Boyder. I gave 1 stiver as a tip to the host's servant, and at Mechlin I took supper with the Lady Neuwetterkut, and early on Monday I travelled from Mechlin to Antwerp. At Antwerp, September 3rd to October 4th, 1520. I breakfasted with the Portuguese factor, who gave me 3 porcelain dishes, and Rodrigo gave me some calicut feathers. I spent 1 florin and paid my messenger 2 stivers. I bought Susanna a mantle for 2 florins, 10 stivers. My wife paid 4 florins Rhenish for a washtub, a bellows, a basin, a pair of slippers, wood for cooking, stockings, a cage for the parrot, 2 jugs, and for tips she spent, moreover, for eating, drinking, and various necessaries, 21 stivers. Now on Monday after St. Giles I am back again at Jobst Plankfelders, and have dined with him as many times as are drawn here. I gave Nicholas, Thomason's man, 1 stiver. I paid 5 stivers for the little frame, and 1 stiver more. My host gave me an Indian coconut, and an old Turkish whip. Then I have dined more with Thomason. The 2 lords of Roggendorf have invited me. I have dined once with them and made a large drawing of their coat of arms on wood, for engraving. I gave away 1 stiver. My wife changed a florin for 24 stivers. I gave 2 stivers as a tip. I have dined once in Fokker's house, with the young Jacob Railinger, and I have also dined once more with him. My wife has changed a florin for 24 stivers for expenses. I gave to Wilhelm Hallenhut, the servant of my Lord Duke Frederick, the Platzgraf, an engraved Jerome, and the 2 new half-sheets, the Mary, and the Anthony. I gave her Jacob Benesis a good painting of a Veronica face, a Eustace, a Melancholy, and a sitting Jerome, a Saint Anthony, the 2 new Marys, and the new peasants. And I have given his secretary, Erasmus, who wrote my supplication, a sitting Jerome, a Melancholy, an Anthony, the 2 new Marys, and the peasants, and I have given him also 2 small Marys, and altogether what I have given is worth 7 florins, and I have given Master Mark, the goldsmith, a Passion on copper. And he gave me 3 florins in payment. Besides this I have received 3 florins, 20 stivers, for prints. To the glazier Honegan, I have given 4 little engravings. I have dined with Herbenesis 3. I paid 4 stivers for carbon and black chalk. I have given 1 florin, 8 stivers for wood, and spent 3 stivers more. I have dined with the lords of Nuremberg. Master Dietrich, the glass painter, sent me the red color which is found in the new bricks at Antwerp. I made charcoal portrait of Jacob von Lübeck. He gave my wife a Philips florin. I have again changed a Philips florin for expenses. I presented to Lady Margaret a St. Jerome engraved on copper. I sold a woodcut Passion for 12 stivers, besides an Adam and Eve for 4 stivers. Felix, the captain and lute player, bought a whole set of copper engravings, and a woodcut Passion, and an engraved Passion, 2 half-sheets, and 2 quarter-sheets, for 8 gold florins, so I gave him another set of engravings. I have taken Urbanissus's portrait in charcoal. Rodrigo gave me another parrot, and I gave his boy 2 stivers for a tip. I gave Johann von den Winkel, the trumpeter, a small woodcut Passion, St. Jerome, in his cell, and a melancholy. I paid 6 stivers for a pair of gloves. I paid 3 stivers for a bamboo rod, and George Schlaudersbot gave me another which cost 6 stivers. I have dined once with Wolf Haller, who was employed by the Fuggers, when he had invited my lords of Nuremberg. I have received for works of art 2 Philips florins and 6 stivers. I have again dined once with my wife. I gave 1 stiver to Hans Dean's boy for a tip. I have taken 100 stivers for works of art. I made a charcoal portrait of Master Jacob, Lord Roggendorf's painter, and I have drawn for Lord Roggendorf his arms on wood, for which he gave me 7 ells of velvet. I dined once more with the Portuguese. I took the portrait of Master John Prost of Bruges, and he gave me 1 florin. It was done in charcoal, 23 stivers for a fur coat of rabbit skin. I sent Hans Schwartz 2 golden florins for my picture in a letter sent through the Antwerp Fuggers to Augsburg. I gave 31 stivers for a red woolen shirt. I dined once more with Roggendorf. I gave 2 stivers for the color which is found in the bricks, and I paid 9 stivers for an ox horn. I made a charcoal portrait of a Spaniard. I have dined once with my wife. I gave 2 stivers for a dozen little pipes. I gave 3 stivers for 2 little maple wood bowls. 2 such Felix gave my wife, and Master Jacob, the painter from Lübeck, has given my wife another. Dined once with Roggendorf. I paid 1 stiver for the printed entry into Antwerp, showing how the king was received with a splendid triumph. The gates were beautifully decorated, and there were plays, much rejoicing, and beautiful maidens in tableaux vivants, whose like I have seldom seen. Changed 1 florin for expenses. I have seen the bones of the great giant at Antwerp. His leg, above his knee, is 5.5 feet long, and beyond measure heavy, so where his shoulder blades a single one is broader than a strong man's back, and his other limbs. The man was 18 feet high, and reigned at Antwerp, and did great wonders, as is set out in an old book which belongs to the town magistrates. Raphael of Urbino's effects have been all dispersed after his death, but one of his disciples, Tommaso of Bologna by name, a good painter, desired to see me, so he came to me, and gave me a gold ring, an antique with a well-cut stone worth 5 florins, but I have been already offered twice as much for it. In return I gave him my best engravings, worth 6 florins. I bought a piece of calico for 3 stivers. I gave the messenger 1 stiver, and spent 3 stivers in company. I presented to Lady Margaret, the Emperor's sister, editor's note. Actually, she was his aunt, a whole set of all my works, and have drawn her 2 pictures on parchment with the greatest pains and care. All this I have put at 30 florins, and I have had to draw the design of the house for her physician, the doctor, according to which he intends to build one, and for drawing that I would not willingly take less than 10 florins. I have given the servant 1 stiver, and I paid 1 stiver for brick color. I have given her Nicholas Ziegler a Christ lying dead, worth 3 florins. To the Portuguese factor I gave a painting of a child's head, worth 1 florin. I have given 10 stivers for a buffalo horn. I gave 1 gold florin for an elk's hoof. I have done Master Adrian's portrait in charcoal. I gave 2 stivers for the condemnation, and the dialogue, 3 stivers to the messenger. To Master Adrian I have given 2 florins worth of works of art, bought a piece of red chalk for 1 stiver. I have done Herr Wolf von Roggendorf in silver point. Gave away 3 stivers, did the portrait of a noble lady at Thomason's house. I have given to Nicholas a Jerome, in a cell, and 2 new Marys. On Monday after St. Michael's Day, 1520, I gave to Tommaso of Bologna a whole set of prints to send for me to Rome, to another painter, who will send me Raphael's work in return. I dined once with my wife, gave 3 stivers for the little tract. The Bolognese has painted my portrait, which he will take with him back to Rome. I bought an elk's foot for 20 stivers, besides I paid 2 gold florins, 4 stivers, for her Hans Ebner's little panel, dined out, changed a crown for expenses, dined out. Am taking 11 florins for my expenses to Aachen, have received 2 florins, 4 stivers, from Ebner, paid 9 stivers for wood, gave Mating 20 stivers, for sending my box. I have taken the portrait of a lady of Bruges, who has given me I Philip's florin. I gave away 3 stivers as a tip, paid 2 stivers for fir cones, and I for stone color, paid 13 stivers to the friar, 1 stiver for leather, bought 2 mussels for 2 stivers. In John Gabriel's house I have taken the portrait of an Italian lord, who gave me 2 gold florins. Bought a portmanteau for 2 florins, 4 stivers. Visit to Aachen. On Thursday after St. Michael's Day, I journeyed from Antwerp to Aachen, and I took 1 gulden and I noble with me, and after passing through Maastricht we came to Gulpen, and from there to A on Sunday. There I have spent up till now, with the fare, and all, 3 florins. At Aachen I saw the well-proportioned pillars with their good capitals of green and red porphyry and granite which Carolus Charlemagne had brought from Rome, and set up there. These are made truly according to Vitruvius' writings. At Aachen I bought an ox horn for 1 gold florin. I have taken the portraits of Herr Hans Ebner and George Schlautersbach, and Hans Ebner's a second time. I paid 2 stivers for a fine whetstone, also 5 stivers for a bath, and drinking in company, changed 1 florin for expenses. I gave the town servant who took me up into the hall to White P.F., spent 5 White P.F. with companions, drinking and bathing. I have lost 7 stivers at play with Herr Hans Ebner, at the mirror. I have made a charcoal portrait of the young Christopher Groland, also of my host, Peter von Inden. I spent 3 stivers in company, and gave the messenger 1 stiver. I have taken the portraits of Paul Topier and Martin Finzing, in my sketchbook. I have seen the arm of the Emperor Henry, the shirt and girdle of Our Lady, and other holy relics. I have sketched the Church of Our Lady, with its surroundings. I took Sturm's portrait. Made the portrait in charcoal of Peter von Inden's brother-in-law. Have given 10 White P.F. for a large ox horn, gave 2 White P.F. for a tip, and I have changed 1 florin for expenses. I have lost 3 White P.F. at play, also 2 stivers, gave 2 White P.F. to the messenger. 1 have given Thomason's daughter the painted Trinity, it is worth 4 florins, paid 1 stiver for washing. I took the portrait in charcoal of the Kopfengren sister at Aachen, and another in silver point. Spent 3 White P.F. for a bath, paid 8 White P.F. for a buffalo horn, 2 White P.F. for a girdle, paid I Philip's florin for a scarlet shawl, 6 P.F. for paper, changed 1 florin for expenses, paid 2 White P.F. for washing. On the 23rd day of October King Charles was crowned at Aachen. There I saw all manner of lordly splendour, the like of which those who live in our parts have never seen, all, as it has been described. I gave Mathis works of art worth 2 florins, and presented Stephen, Lady Margaret's chamberlain, with 3 prints. Paid 1 florin, 10 White P.F. for cedarwood rosary, gave 1 stiver to little Hans, in the stable, and 1 stiver to the child in the house, lost 2 stivers at play. Spent 2 stivers, gave 2 stivers to the barber. I have again changed 1 florin, I gave away 7 White P.F. in the house on leaving. Second visit to Cologne. And I travelled from Aachen to Jülich, and thence paid 4 stivers for 2 eyeglasses. I played away 2 stivers in an embossed silver medal of the king. I have given 8 White P.F. for 2 ox horns. On the Friday before St. Simon and St. Jude I left Aachen, and travelled to Durer, where I visited the church, where St. Anne's head is. Thence we travelled, and came on Sunday, which was St. Simon and St. Jude's day, to Cologne. I had lodging, food, and drink at Brussels, with my lords of Nuremberg, and they would take nothing from me for it, and at Aachen likewise I ate with them 3 weeks, and they brought me to Cologne, and would take nothing for it. I have bought a tract of Luther's, for 5 White P.F., besides 1 White P.F., for the condemnation of Luther, the pious man, besides 1 white PF for a paternoster, and 2 white PF for a girdle. I white PF for 1 pound of candles, changed 1 florin for expenses. I had to give her Leonhard Kroll and my great ox horn, and to Hans Ebner I had to give my large rosary of cedar wood. Paid 6 white PF for a pair of shoes. I gave 2 white PF for a little scuttle. 1 white PF I gave for beer and bread. 1 white PF for a pertelli braid. I have given 4 white PF to 2 messengers. I have given 2 white PF to Nicholas's daughter for lace. Also 1 white PF to a messenger. I gave Princeworth 2 florins to Herr Ziegler Linhard, paid the barber 2 white PF, paid 3 white PF, and then 2 white PF for opening the picture which Master Stefan made at Cologne. I gave the messenger 1 white PF, and spent 2 white PF drinking in company. I made the portrait of Gottschalk's sister, 1 paid I white PF for a little tract. At Cologne, on Sunday evening after All Saints' Day, in the year 1520, I saw the nobles dance and banquet in the Emperor Charles's dancing saloon. It was splendidly arranged. I have drawn for Staber his coat of arms on wood. I gave a melancholy to a young count at Cologne, and a new Mary to Duke Frederick. I have made Nicholas Hayler's portrait in charcoal, paid 2 white PF to the door porter. I have given 3 white PF for 2 little tracts, also 10 white PF for a cow horn. At Cologne I went to St. Ursula's church, and to her grave, and saw the Holy Maiden, and the other great relics. Fernberger's portrait I took in charcoal, changed 1 florin for expenses. I gave Nicholas's wife 8 white PF, when she invited me, as a guest. I bought 2 prints for 1 stiver. Her Hans Ebner and her Nicholas Kroland would take nothing from me for 8 days at Brussels, 3 weeks at Aachen, and 14 days at Cologne. I made the nun's portrait, and gave 7 white PF to the nun. I made her a present of 3 half-sheet engravings on copper. My confirmation from the Emperor came to my lords of Nuremberg the Monday after St. Martin's, the year 1520, after great trouble and labor. I gave Nicholas's daughter 7 white PF, on departing, 1 florin to his wife, and again 1 ort to his daughter, on leaving, and I started away from Cologne. Before that, Staber invited me once as his guest, and so did my cousin Nicholas once, and old Wolfgang once, and once besides I dined as his guest. I have given Nicholas's man Eustace, on leaving, and his little daughter another ort, as they took much trouble. For me I have given 1 florin, for a little ivory skull, and I white PF, for a turned box, also 7 white PF, for a pair of shoes, and I gave Nicholas's man a nemesis, on leaving. Second journey from Cologne to Antwerp. I started off early by boat from Cologne on Wednesday after St. Martin's, and went as far as paid 6 white PF for a pair of shoes. I gave 4 white PF to the messenger. From Cologne I travelled by the Rhine to Zons, from Zons to Neuss, and from thence to Stein, where we stayed the day, and I spent 6 white PF. Thence we came to Dusseldorf, a little town, where I spent 2 white PF, from thence to Kaiserswerth, from thence to Duisburg, another little town, and we passed 2 castles, Angerort and Rohr. Thence we went to Orsoy, a little town. From thence we went to Rheinberg, another little town, where I lay overnight, and spent 6 white PF. From there I travelled to the following towns, Bergwessel, Ries, and from there to Emmerich. We came next to Thomas, and from there to Nimwegen. There we stayed over the night, and spent 4 white PF. From Nimwegen I travelled to Tile, and from there to Herzogenbusch. At Emmerich I stopped, and spent 3 white PF, on a very good meal. There I took the portrait of a goldsmith's apprentice, Peter Federmacher of Antwerp, and of a woman. The reason of our staying was that a great storm of wind overtook us. I spent besides 5 white PF, and I changed 1 florin for expenses. Also I took the host's portrait, and we did not get to Nimwegen until Sunday. I gave the boatman 20 white PF. Nimwegen is a beautiful city, and has a fine church, and a well-situated castle. From there we travelled to Tile, where we left the Rhine, and continued on the Maas to Heerwarden, where the 2 towers stand. There we lay overnight, and during this day I spent 7 stivers. From there we started early on Tuesday for Bammel. On the Maas, there a great storm of wind overtook us, and we hired some peasant horses, and rode without saddles as far as Herzogenbusch, and I paid 1 florin for the journey by boat and horse. Herzogenbusch is a beautiful city, and has an extremely beautiful church, and a strong fortress. There I spent 10 stivers. although Arnold settled for the repast. The goldsmiths came to me and showed me great honor. From there we traveled on Our Lady's Day early and came through the large and beautiful village of Osterwick. We breakfasted at Dilborg and spent 4 white pf. From there we came to Barley, lay the night there, and spent 3 stivers, and my companions got into an argument with the innkeeper, so we went on in the night to Hoogstraten. There we stopped 2 hours, and went by St. Leonhardkirchen to Harst. We breakfasted there, and spent 4 stivers. Second stay at Antwerp, November 22nd to December 3rd, 1520. From there we journeyed to Antwerp, and gave the driver 15 stivers. This was on Thursday after Our Lady's Assumption by error for presentation, and I gave an engraving of the Passion to John, Jobst Schweiger's man, and I made a portrait of Nicholas Apollos, and on the Thursday after Our Lady's Assumption presentation 1520, I was once more back in Jobst Plankfeld's house. I have eaten with him times. My wife I changed 1 florin for expenses, besides a crown, and the 7 weeks that I have been away my wife and maid have spent 7 crowns, and bought another 4 florins worth of things. I spent 4 stivers in company. I have dined with Thomas in times. On St. Martin's Day my wife had her purse cut off in Our Lady's Church at Antwerp. There were 2 florins in it, and the purse itself, besides what was in it, was worth another florin, and some keys were in it, too. On the eve before St. Catherine's I paid Jobst Plankfeld, my host, 10 gold crowns for my reckoning. I dined 2 times with the Portuguese. Rodrigo gave me 6 Indian nuts, so I gave his boy 2 stivers for a tip. I paid 19 stivers for parchment, changed 2 crowns for expenses. I sold 2 adamantives, 1 sea monster, 1 Jerome, 1 knight, 1 nemesis, 1 St. Eustace, 1 whole sheet, besides 17 etched pieces, 8 quarter sheets, and 10 woodcuts, 7 of the bad woodcuts, 2 books, and 10 small wood passions, the whole for 8 florins. Also I exchanged 3 large books for 1 ounce of camlet. I changed a Phillips florin for expenses, and my wife likewise changed a florin. At Zierikzee in Zealand a whale has been washed ashore by a great tide and storm. It is much more than 100 fathoms long. No one in Zealand has ever seen one even 1/3 as long, and the fish cannot get off the land. The people would be glad to see it gone, for they fear the great stink, for it is so big they say it could not be cut in pieces, and the oil got out of it in half a year. Stephen Capello has given me a cedarwood rosary, in return for which I was to take and have taken his portrait. I paid 4 stivers for Furnace Brown, and a pair of snuffers. I gave 3 stivers for paper, made a portrait of Felix, kneeling, in his book in pen and ink, and Felix gave me 100 oysters. I gave her Lazarus, the great man, an engraved Jerome, and 3 large books. Rodrigo sent me some wine and oysters. I paid 7 white pf for black chalk. I have had to dinner Thomasin, Gerhard, Thomasin's daughter, her husband, the glass painter Henrik, Jobst, and his wife, and Felix, which cost 2 florins. Thomasin made me a gift of 4 ells of great damask for a doublet. I have changed a Phillips florin for expenses. Visit to Zealand, December 3rd to 14th, 1520. On St. Barbara's Eve I travelled from Antwerp to Bergen op Zoom. I paid 2 stivers for the horse, and I spent 1 florin 6 stivers here. At Bergen I bought my wife a thin Netherlandish headcloth, which cost 1 florin, 7 stivers, besides 6 stivers for 3 pairs of shoes, 1 stiver for eyeglasses, and 6 stivers for an ivory button, gave 2 stivers for a tip. I have drawn the portraits in charcoal of Jan de Haas, his wife, and 2 daughters, and the maid, and the old woman in silver point, in my sketchbook. I saw the Van Bergen house, which is a very large and beautiful building. Bergen is a pleasant place in summer, and 2 great fairs are held there yearly. On Our Lady's Eve I started with my companions for Zealand, and Sebastian Imhoff lent me 5 florins, and the first night we lay at anchor, in the sea. It was very cold, and we had neither food nor drink. On Saturday we came to Goes, and there I drew a girl in the costume of the place. Thence we travelled to Arnuiden, and I paid 15 stivers for expenses. We went by a sunken place, where we saw the tops of the roofs standing up above the water, and we went by the island of Walfersdijk, and passed the little town Kortjen, on another island lying near. Zealand has 7 islands, and Arnuiden, where I lay the night, is the biggest. From there I traveled to Middelburg. There in the Abbey Jan de Mapues has made a great picture, not so good in the drawing as in the coloring. From there I went to the Veer, where ships from all lands lie. It is a very fine little town. But at Arnuiden, where I landed, there happened to me a great misfortune. As we were coming to land and getting out our rope, just as we were getting on shore, a great ship ran into us so hard that in the crush I let everyone get out before me, so that no one but myself, George Kotzler, 2 old women, the sailor, and a little boy were left in the ship. When now the other ship knocked against us and I with those mentioned was on the ship, and could not get out, the strong rope broke, and at the same moment a violent storm of wind arose which forcibly drove back our ship. So we all called for help, but no one would risk himself, and the wind carried us back out to sea. Then the skipper tore his hair and cried aloud, for all his men had landed, and the ship was unmanned. It was a matter of fear and danger, for there was a great wind, and no more than 6 persons in the ship. So I spoke to the skipper, that he should take heart, and have hope in God, and should take thought for what was to be done. He said, that if he could pull up the small sail, he would try, if we could come again to land. So we all helped one another, and pulled it halfway up with difficulty, and went on again towards the land. And when those on the land who had already given us up saw how we helped ourselves, they too came to our aid, and we got to land. Middelburg is a good town. It has a very beautiful town hall, with a fine tower. There is much art shown in all things here. There are very rich and beautiful stalls in the abbey, and a splendid gallery of stone, and a beautiful parish church. The town is excellent for sketching. Zealand is beautiful and wonderful to see on account of the water, for it stands higher than the land. I have made a portrait of my host at Arnuiden. Master Hugo, Alexander Imhoff, and the Hirschvogel servant Frederick gave me each of them an Indian nut that they had won at play, and the host gave me a sprouting bulb. Early on Monday morning we went back to the ship, and set out for the Veer, and for Zierikzee. I wanted to get sight of the great fish, but the tide had carried it off again. I paid 2 florins for fare and expenses, and 2 florins for a rug, 4 stivers for a fig cheese, and 3 stivers for carriage, and I lost 6 stivers at play. When we came back to Bergen I gave 10 stivers for an ivory comb. I have taken Schnabben's portrait, and I have also taken the portrait of my host's son-in-law, Clouds. Gave 2 florins less 5 stivers for a piece of tin, also 2 florins for a bad piece of tin. I have also taken the portrait of little Bernard of Brussels, George Kotzler, and the Frenchman from Cameric. Each of them gave me 1 florin at Bergen. Jan de Haas' son-in-law gave me 1 horn florin for his portrait, and Kirpin of Cologne also gave me a florin, and besides this I bought 2 bed covers for 4 florins less 10 stivers. I have made the portrait of Nicholas, the jeweler. These are the number of times that I have dined at Bergen, since I came from Zealand, and once for 4 stivers. I paid the driver 3 stivers, and spent 8 stivers, and came back to Antwerp, to Jobst Plankfelds, on Friday after St. Lucy's, 1520, and I have dined this number of times with him, It is paid, and my wife, and that is paid. At Antwerp, December, 1520, April, 1521. In return for the 3 books which I gave him, Herr Lazarus of Ravensburg has given me a big fish scale, 5 snail shells, 4 silver medals, 5 copper ones, 2 little dried fishes, and a white coral, 4 reed arrows, and another white coral. I changed 1 florin for expenses, and likewise 1 crown. I have dined alone so many times. The factor of Portugal has given me a brown velvet bag, and a box of good electuary. I gave his boy 3 stivers for wages. I gave 1 horn florin for 2 little panels, but they gave me back 6 stivers. I bought a little monkey for 4 gulden, and gave 14 stivers for 5 fish. I paid Jobs 10 stivers for 3 dinners. I gave 2 stivers for 2 tracts, and 2 stivers to the messenger. I gave Lazarus of Ravensburg a portrait head-on panel which cost 6 stivers, and besides that I have given him 8 sheets of the large copper engravings, 8 of the half-sheets, an engraved Passion, and other engravings and woodcuts, altogether worth more than 4 florins. I changed a Phillips florin for expenses, and besides that a gold florin for expenses. I gave 6 stivers for a panel, and did the portrait of the servant of the Portuguese on it in charcoal, and I gave him all that for a New Year's present, and 2 stivers for a tip. Changed 1 florin for expenses, and gave Bernhard Stecker a whole set of prints. I bought 31 stivers worth of wood. I have made the portraits of Gerhard Bombelli and Sebastian the procurator's daughter. I have changed 1 florin for expenses. Have spent 3 stivers besides 3 more for a meal. I have given Herwulf of Roggendorf a passion on copper, and 1 in woodcut. Gerhard Bombelli has given me a printed Turkish cloth, and Herwulf of Roggendorf gave me 7 brabantels of velvet, so I gave his man 1 Phillips florin for a tip. Spent 3 stivers on a meal, gave 4 stivers for tips. I have drawn the new factor's portrait in charcoal. Gave 6 stivers for a panel. Have dined with the Portuguese times, with the treasurer 1, with Thomasin times. Gave 4 stivers for tips. With Lazarus of Ravensburg 1, Wilf of Roggendorf 1, Bernhard Stecker 1, Utzhan Oltmating 1, Caspar Leuenter 1. I gave 3 stivers to the man, whose portrait I drew, gave the boy 2 stivers. I have given 4 florins for flax. Have taken 4 florins for prints, have changed 1 crown for expenses. Paid the furrier 4 stivers, and again 2 stivers. Lost 4 stivers at play, spent 6 stivers. I have changed 1 noble for expenses, gave 18 stivers for raisins, and 3 pairs of knives. I paid 2 florins for some meals at Jobst's. Have lost 4 stivers at play, and gave 6 stivers to the furrier. Have given Master Jacob 2 engraved St. Jerome's. Lost 2 stivers at play, changed 1 crown for expenses, lost 1 stiver at play. Have given to Thomasin's 3 maids 3 pairs of knives, which cost 5 stivers. Have taken 29 stivers for prints. Rodrigo gave me a musk ball just as it had been cut from the musk deer, also a 1/4 pounds of Persina dark red paint, and a box full of Quin Selectuary, and a big box of sugar, so I gave his boy 5 stivers for a tip. Lost 2 stivers at play. I have done the portrait of Jobst's wife in charcoal. I have got 4 florins, 5 stivers for 3 small canvases. Changed 2 florins in succession for expenses. Lost 2 stivers at play. My wife gave me 1 florin for the child, and 4 stivers in the child's bed. I have changed 1 crown for expenses, spent 4 stivers, lost 2 stivers at play, and gave 4 stivers to the messenger. Changed 1 florin for expenses. I gave Master Dietrich, the glass painter, an Apocalypse, and the 6 nuts. Paid 40 stivers for flax. Lost 8 stivers at play. I have given the little Portuguese factor, Signor Francisco, my small canvas with a small child, that is worth 10 florins. I have given Dr. Laufen at Antwerp the 4 books, and an engraved Jerome, and the same to Jobst Plankfelt. I have done the arms of Staber, and another. I have made a portrait of Thomasin's son and daughter in silver point, also I have painted a small panel in oil of the Duke. Have got 3 stivers for engravings. Rodrigo, the Portuguese secretary, has given me 2 calicut cloths, one of them is silk, and he has given me an ornamented cap, and a green jug with myrobalans, and a branch of cedar tree, worth 10 florins altogether. And I gave the boy for a tip 5 stivers, and 2 stivers for a brush. I have made a drawing for a mask for the Fuggers people for masquerade, and they have given me an angel. I have changed 1 florin for expenses. Gave 8 stivers for 2 little powder horns. Lost 3 stivers at play. Changed an angel for expenses. I have drawn 2 sheets full of beautiful little masks for Thomasin. I have painted a good Veronica face in oils, it is worth 12 florins. I gave it to Francisco, the Portuguese factor. Since then I have painted Santa Veronica in oils, it is better than the former, and I gave it to Factor Brandon of Portugal. Francisco gave the maid 1 Phillips florin for a tip, and afterwards, because of the Veronica, 1 florin more, but the Factor Brandon gave her 1 florin. I paid Peter 8 stivers for 2 cases. I changed an angel for expenses. On Carnival Sunday early, the goldsmiths invited me to dinner, with my wife. In their assembly were many noblemen. They prepared a very grand meal, and did me the greatest honor. In the evening the old bailiff of the town invited me, and gave me a splendid meal, and did me great honor. Thither came many strange maskers. I have drawn the portrait of Florence Nepos, Lady Margaret's organist, in charcoal. On Monday night Herr Lopez invited me to the great banquet on Shrove Tuesday, which lasted till 2 o'clock, and was very grand. Her Lorenster has given me a Spanish fur. And to the above-mentioned feast came many very splendid masks, especially Thomas in Bombali. I have won 2 florins at play. Have changed an angel for expenses, paid 14 stivers for a basket of raisins. I have made the portrait in charcoal of Bernhard von Castell, from whom I won the money. Thomason's brother Gerhard has given me 4 brabantels of the best black satin, and has given me 3 big boxes of candied citron, so I gave the maid 3 stivers for a tip. Paid 13 stivers for wood, and 2 stivers for pine kernels. I drew the procurator's daughter very carefully in silver point. Have changed 1 angel for expenses. I have drawn the portrait in black chalk of the good marble worker, Master Johann, who looks like Christopher Kohler. He has studied in Italy, and comes from Metz. I have changed 1 horn florin for expenses. I have given 3 florins to Jonterk for Italian works of art. I gave him 12 ducats worth of works of art for 1 ounce of good ultramarine. I have sold a small woodcut of the Passion for florins. I sold 2 reams and 4 books of Schafflein's prints for 3 florins. Have given 3 florins for 2 ivory salt cellars from Calicut. Have taken 2 florins for prints. Have changed 1 florin for expenses. Ridiger von Gellern gave me a snail shell, together with coins of gold and silver, with an ort. I gave him in return the 3 large books, and an engraved knight. Have taken 11 stivers for prints. I gave 2 Phillips florins for SS. Peter and Paul, which I shall present to Herr Kohler's wife. Rodrigo has given me 2 boxes of quince electuary, and all kinds of sweetmeats, and I gave 5 stivers for a tip, paid 16 stivers for boxes. Lazarus of Ravensburg gave me a sugar loaf, so I gave his boy 1 stiver. Paid 6 stivers for wood. Have eaten once with a Frenchman, twice with the Hirschvogels Fritz, and once with Master Peter, the secretary. When Erasmus of Rotterdam also dined with us, I paid 1 stiver to be allowed to go up the tower at Antwerp, which is said to be higher than that at Strasbourg. From thence I saw the whole town on all sides, which was very pleasant. Paid 1 stiver for a bath. Have changed 1 angel for expenses. The factor Brandon of Portugal has given me 2 large beautiful white sugar loaves, a dish full of sweetmeats, 2 green pots of preserves, and 4 ells of black satin, so I gave the servant 10 stivers for a tip. Paid the messenger 3 stivers. I have drawn twice in the Moor and silver point the beautiful maiden for Gerhard. Again changed an angel for expenses, took 4 florins for prints, paid 10 stivers for Rodrigo's case. Dined with the treasurer, Herr Lorensterk, who gave me an ivory whistle, and a very beautiful piece of porcelain, and I have given him a whole set of prints. I also gave a whole set to Herr Adrian, the Antwerp town orator. Also I changed a Phillips florin for expenses. I presented a sitting St. Nicholas to the largest and richest guild of merchants at Antwerp, for which they have made me a present of 3 Phillips florins. I gave Peter Agidius the old frame of the St. Jerome, besides 4 gulden for a frame for the treasurer's likeness. Paid 11 stivers for wood. Again changed a Phillips florin for expenses. Gave 4 stivers for a boar. Gave 3 stivers for 3 canes. I have handed over my bale to Jacob and Andreas Hessler, to take to Nuremberg, and I am to pay them 2 florins per cwt, Nuremberg weight, and they are to take it to Herr Hans Imhoff, the elder, and I have paid 2 florins on it. Moreover, I have done it up in a packing case. This was in the year 1521, on the Saturday before Judith's. Also on the Saturday before Judith's, Rodrigo gave me 6 large Indian coconuts, a very fine piece of coral, and 2 large Portuguese florins, one of which weighs 10 ducats, and I gave the boy 15 stivers for a tip. I have bought a load stone for 16 stivers. I have changed an angel for expenses. Paid 6 stivers for packing. Sent Master Hugo at Brussels an engraved Passion, and some other prints for his little porphyry stone. I have made for Thomas in a design drawn and tinted in half colors, from which he means to have his house painted. I painted Jerome in oils with care, and gave it to Rodrigo of Portugal, who gave Susanna a ducat for a tip. Have changed a Philip's florin for expenses, and gave 10 stivers to my father confessor. Gave 4 stivers for the little tortoise. I have dined with Her Gilbert, who gave me a calicut target made of a fish skin, and 2 gloves, as they use them for fighting. I have given Peter 2 stivers. Gave 10 stivers for the fish fins, and 3 stivers for a tip. I have made a very good portrait in hard chalk of Cornelius, the secretary of Antwerp. I have given 3 florins, 16 stivers, for the 5 silk girdles which I mean to give away, besides 20 stivers for an edging lace. These 6 edgings I have sent as presents to the wives of Kasperi Nussel, Franz Imhoff, Straub, the 2 Spenglers, Loffelholtz, besides a good pair of gloves to each. To Pirkheimer I have sent a large cap, a very handsome buffalo horning stand, a silver medal of the emperor, a pound of pistachios, and 3 sugar canes. To Casper Tietzel I have sent a great elk's foot, 10 large fir cones with pine kernels. To Jacob Muffel I have sent a scarlet breastcloth of 1 ell, to Hans Imhoff's child an embroidered scarlet cap and pine kernels, to Kramer's wife 4 ells of taffeta, worth 4 florins. To Lockinger's wife 1 ell of taffeta, of 1 florin's worth, to the 2 Spenglers, each a bag, and 3 fine horns, to her Hierony Musholtz Schuher, a very large horn. Have eaten twice with the factor, dined with Master Adrian, the secretary of the town council of Antwerp, who gave me the small painted panel made by Master Joachim de Potinierides of Lot, and his daughters. Have taken 12 florins for prints, also I have sold some of Hans Baldengrun's works for 1 florin. Rudiger von Gellern has given me a piece of sandalwood, I gave his boy a stiver. I have painted the portrait of Bernhard of Brussels in oils, he gave me 8 florins for it, and gave my wife a crown, and Susanna a florin worth 24 stivers. I have given 3 stivers for the Swiss jug, and 2 stivers for the ship, also 3 stivers for the case, and 4 stivers to the father confessor. I have changed an angel for expenses, have taken 4 florins, 10 stivers for works of art, paid 3 stivers for salve, gave 12 and 1/2 stivers for wood, changed 1 florin for expenses, have given 1 florin for 14 pieces of French wood. I gave Ambrosio Hochstetter a life of Our Lady, and he gave me a model of his ship. Rodrigo gave my wife a little ring which is worth more than 5 florins. Have changed 1 florin for expenses. I have done the portrait of Factor Brandon's secretary in charcoal, I have done the portrait of his Moorish woman in silver point, and I have done Rodrigo's portrait on a large sheet of paper with a brush, in black and white. I have given 16 florins for a piece of camlet measuring 24 ells, and it cost 1 stiver to bring home. Have paid 2 stivers for gloves. I have done Lucas of Danzig's portrait in charcoal. He gave me 1 florin for it, and a piece of sandalwood. Visit to Bruges and Ghent, April 6 to 11, 1521. On the Saturday after Easter, with Hans Luber and Master Jan Prevost, a good painter born at Bruges, I set out from Antwerp towards Bruges by way of the Scheldt, and came to Beveren, a large village. From there to Vrecen, also a big village. Thence we passed through some villages, and came to a fine large village, where the rich farmers live, and there we breakfasted. Thence we journeyed towards St. Paul's, the rich abbey, and went through Cottenburn, a fine village, thence through the large village of Cal, and thence to Ertwalde. There we lay the night, and started early on Sunday morning, and came from Ertwalde to a small town. From that we went to Wakelomo, which is a mighty large village. It is plastered, and has a square. There we breakfasted. Thence we went to Maldegem, and then through other villages, and came to Bruges, which is a fine noble town. I paid 21 stivers for fare, and other expenses. And arriving at Bruges, Jan Prevost took me into his house, to lodge, and the same night prepared a costly meal, and asked much company to meet me. The next day Marx, the goldsmith, invited me, and gave me a costly meal, and asked many to meet me. Afterwards they took me to see the emperor's house, which is large and splendid. There I saw the chapel which Roger painted, and some pictures by a great old artist. I gave the man who showed them to us 1 stiver. Afterwards I bought 2 ivory combs for 30 stivers. Thence they took me to St. James's, and let me see the splendid paintings of Roger and Hugo, who are both great masters. Afterwards I saw the alabaster Madonna in Our Lady's Church that Michelangelo of Rome made. Afterwards they took me to many churches, and let me see all the fine paintings, of which there is abundance there, and when I had seen the Jan van Eyck, and all the other things, we came at last to the painter's chapel, in which there are good things. Then they prepared a banquet for me, and I went thence with them to their guild hall. There were many honorable men gathered together, goldsmiths, painters, and merchants, and they made me sup with them, and they gave me presents, and sought my acquaintance, and did me great honor, and the two brothers Jacob and Peter Mustard, the town councillors, gave me 12 cans of wine, and the whole assembly, more than 60 persons, accompanied me home with many torches. I also saw in their shooting gallery the great fish tub from which they eat, which is 19 feet long, 7 high, and 7 broad. Early on Tuesday we departed, but before that, I did Jan Prevost's portrait in silver point, and gave his wife 10 stivers at parting. And so we travelled to Hersel. There we breakfasted. On the way there are 3 villages. Then we travelled towards Ghent, again through 3 villages, and I paid 4 stivers for the journey, and 4 stivers for expenses, and on my arrival at Ghent, there came to me the dean of the painters, and brought with him the first masters in painting. They showed me great honor, received me most courteously, and commended to me their goodwill and service, and supped with me on Wednesday early. They took me to the Tower of St. John's, whence I looked all over the great and wonderful town, where I had just been treated as a great person. Afterwards I saw the Jan van Eyck's picture, which is a very splendid, deeply studied painting, and especially the Eve, the Mary, and God the Father were extremely good. Then I saw the lions and drew one of them in silver point. Also I saw on the bridge, where men are beheaded, 2 pictures which were made as a sign that their son had beheaded his father. Ghent is beautiful, and a wonderful town, 4 great waters flow through it. I gave 3 stivers as a tip to the sacristan and the lion's keeper. I saw many other remarkable things in Ghent, and the painters with their dean did not forget me, but ate with me morning and evening, and paid for everything, and were very friendly. I gave away 3 stivers at the inn on leaving. Then early on Thursday I set out from Ghent, and came through various villages to the inn called the Swan, where we breakfasted. Thence we passed through a beautiful village, and came to Antwerp, and I paid 8 stivers for the fare. At Antwerp, April 11th to May 17th, 1521. I have taken 4 florins for works of art, changed 1 florin for expenses. Have taken the portrait of Hans Lieber of Ulm in charcoal. He wished to pay me 1 florin, but I would not take it. Gave 7 stivers for wood and 1 stiver for bringing it, changed 1 florin for expenses. In the 3rd week after Easter a violent fever came upon me with great weakness, nausea, and headache, and before, when I was in Zealand, a strange illness overcame me such as I never heard of from anyone, and this illness I have still. I paid 6 stivers for a case. The monk has bound 2 books for me for the prince which I gave him. I have given 10 florins, 8 stivers for a piece of arras for 2 mantles for my mother-in-law and my wife. I gave the doctor 8 stivers, and 3 stivers to the apothecary, also changed 1 florin for expenses, and spent 3 stivers in company. Paid the doctor 10 stivers, again paid the doctor 6 stivers. During my illness Rodrigo sent me many sweetmeats. I gave the boy 4 stivers for a tip. I have drawn Master Joachim Pottinger in silver point, and made him besides another likeness in silver point. Again changed a crown for expenses, and again 1 florin for expenses. Paid the doctor 6 stivers, and 7 stivers, at the apothecary's, changed 1 florin for expenses. For packing the 3rd bale, which I sent from Antwerp to Nuremberg by a carrier called Hans Staber, I paid 13 stivers, and I paid the carrier 1 florin for it, and I agreed with him to take it from Antwerp to Nuremberg for 1 florin, iort, per cwt, and this bale is to be taken to Herr Hans Imhoff, the elder. I have paid the doctor, the apothecary, and the barber 14 stivers. I gave Master Jacob, the surgeon, 4 florins worth of prints. I have made a portrait in charcoal of Thomas Polonius of Rome. My camlet cloak came to 21 brabantels, which are 3 finger breadths longer than the Nuremberg L's. I have also bought 4 black Spanish skins, which cost 3 stivers each, and they come to 34. That makes 10 florins, 2 stivers. I paid the skinner for 1 florin to make them up. Then there were 2 ells of velvet for trimming, 5 florins, also for silk cord and thread, 34 stivers, then the tailor's wage, 30 stivers, the camlet which is in the cloak cost 14½ florins, and the boy 5 stivers for a tip. Cross Sunday after Easter, from this I start a fresh account. Again paid the doctors 6 stivers. I have gained 53 stivers for works of art, and have taken them for expenses. On Sunday before Holy Cross Week, Master Joachim Pottinger, the good landscape painter, asked me to his wedding, and showed me all honor. There I saw 2 beautiful plays. The first was especially pious and devout. I again paid the doctors 6 stivers, and have changed 1 florin for expenses. On Sunday after our Lord's Ascension, Master Dietrich, the glass painter of Antwerp, invited me, and asked many other people, to meet me, and especially among them Alexander, the goldsmith, a rich, stately man, and we had a splendid dinner, and they did me great honor. I have done in charcoal the portrait of Master Marx, the goldsmith, who lives at Bruges. I bought a broad cap for 36 stivers. I paid Paul Geiger 1 florin to take my little chest to Nuremberg, and 4 stivers for the letter. I have taken the portrait of Ambrosius Hochstatter in charcoal, and I dined with him. I have dined at least 6 times with Thomason. I bought some wooden dishes and platters for 3 stivers. I have given the apothecary 12 stivers. I have given 2 books of the life of Our Lady, one to the foreign surgeon, the other to Marx's house servant. I also paid the doctor 8 stivers, and gave 4 stivers for cleaning an old cap. Lost 4 stivers at play, have given 2 florins for a new cap. I have changed the old cap because it was clumsy, and have given 6 stivers more for another. Painted a portrait of the Duke in oils, have made a very fine and careful portrait in oils of the treasurer, Lowenstruck. It was worth 25 florins. I presented it to him, and in return he gave me 20 florins, and to Susanna 1 florin for a tip. Likewise I painted the portrait of Jobst, my host, very well, and carefully in oils. He has now given me the portrait I did of him before, and I have done his wife again, and painted her portrait in oils. On the Friday before Whitsuntide, 1521, tidings came to me at Antwerp, that Martin Luther had been so treacherously taken prisoner, for he trusted the Emperor Charles's herald, who had been granted to him with the imperial safe-conduct, but as soon as the herald had brought him near Eisenach, to an unfriendly place, he said that he would not need him any more, and rode away. Immediately there appeared 10 knights, who treacherously carried off the pious man, who had been betrayed, a man enlightened by the Holy Ghost, a follower of Christ, and of the true Christian faith, and whether he lives yet, or whether they have put him to death, I know not. If he has suffered, it is for the sake of Christian truth, and because he has fought with the unchrist-like papacy, which strives with its heavy load of human laws against the redemption of Christ, and if so, it is that we may be again robbed and stripped of the fruit of our blood and sweat, that the same may be shamelessly and scandalously squandered, while poor and sick men must therefore die of hunger. And this is above all most grievous to me, that God perhaps will let us remain yet under their false, blind doctrine, invented and set forth by the men, whom they call fathers, through whom the word of God is in many places falsely expounded, or not taught at all. Editor's note: this form of abduction was the usual idea at the time. But Luther was really taken by the order of Frederick the Wise in order to protect him. O God of heaven, have pity on us. O Lord Jesus Christ, pray for thy people. Deliver us in due time, uphold in us the right and true Christian faith. Gather together thy far scattered sheep by thy voice, in the scripture called thy godly word. Help us that we may know this thy voice, and may follow no other deceiving call of human error, that we may not, Lord Jesus Christ, fall away from thee. Call together again the sheep of thy pasture, who are still in part found in the Roman Church, and with them, too, the Indians, Muscovites, Russians, and Greeks, who have been thus cut off by the oppression and pride of the Pope, and by false appearance of holiness. O God, redeem thy poor folk constrained by heavy ban and edict which it nowise willingly obeys, whereby it is bound continually to sin against its conscience, if it disobeys them. O God, never hast thou so heavily burdened a people, under human laws as us poor ones, beneath the Roman chair, who daily long to be free Christians ransomed by thy blood. O highest heavenly Father, pour into our hearts through thy Son Jesus Christ such a light, that we may know thereby which messenger we are to obey, so that with good conscience we may lay aside the burdens of others, and may serve thee, eternal heavenly Father, with free and joyful heart. And if we lose this man, who has written more clearly than anyone in 140 years, and to whom thou hast given such an evangelic spirit, we pray thee, O heavenly Father, that thou give again thy Spirit to another, that he may gather together anew from all parts the holy Christian Church, that we may all live again in a pure and Christian manner, so that from our good works all unbelievers, with Turks, heathens, and Calicuts, may turn themselves to us, and embrace the Christian faith. But, Lord, thou willest, ere thou judgest, that as thy Son Jesus Christ was constrained to die by the hands of the priests and rise from the dead and after to ascend to heaven, that so too, in like manner, it should be with thy follower, Martin Luther, whose life the Pope compasses, with money, treacherously towards God. Him thou wilt quicken again. And as thou, Lord, foreordainedst that Jerusalem should be destroyed, so wilt thou also destroy the self-assumed authority of the Roman chair. O Lord, give us thereafter the new beatified Jerusalem, which descends from heaven, whereof the Apocalypse writes, the holy pure gospel which is not darkened by human doctrine. Whoever reads Martin Luther's books may see how clear and transparent his doctrine is, for he teaches the holy gospel. Wherefore his writings are to be held in the greatest honor, and not to be burned, unless, indeed, his opponents, who always fight against the truth, were also cast into the fire with all their opinions, they who would make gods out of men, but then only if there were printed new Lutheran books. O God, if Luther be dead, who will henceforth expound the holy gospel so clearly to us? Ah, God, what might he not have written for us in the next 10 or 20 years? Oh, all ye pious Christian men, help me to lament this God-inspired man, and pray to him, that he will send us another enlightened man. O Erasmus of Rotterdam, where wilt thou stay? Dost thou see how the unjust tyranny of worldly power and the might of darkness prevail? Here, thou Knight of Christ, ride on beside the Lord Jesus, guard the truth when the martyr's crown. Thou art already only a little old man, and I have heard thee say that thou givest thyself but 2 years more in which thou mayest avail to accomplish something. Lay out the same now well for the gospel, and the true Christian faith, and make thyself heard, so shall the gates of hell, the Roman chair, as Christ says, in no wise prevail against thee, and if here, like thy Master Christ, thou were to suffer shame at the hands of the liars of this time, and therefore were to die a little sooner, the sooner wouldst thou come from death into life, and be glorified through Christ. For if thou drinkest out of the cup, whereof he drank, with him thou shalt reign, and judge with justice those who have dealt unrighteously. O Erasmus, hold to this, that God may be thy praise, even as it is written of David, for verily thou mayest overthrow Goliath. For God stands by the holy Christian Church, as he only upholds the Romish Church according to his godly will. Text here corrupt. May he help us to everlasting happiness, who is God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, one God. Amen. O ye Christian men, pray God for help, for as judgment draws near and as justice shall appear, then shall we behold the innocent blood which the Pope, priests, bishops, and monks have shed, judged and condemned. Apocalypse. These are the slain who lie beneath the altar of God, and cry for vengeance, to whom the voice of God answers, await the full number of the innocent slain, then will I judge. Again changed 1 florin for expenses, and gave the doctor 8 stivers, dined twice with Rodrigo, dined with the rich canon, changed 1 florin for expenses. I had Master Conrad, the sculptor of Mechlin, as a guest on Whitsunday, paid 18 stivers for Italian prints, against 6 stivers to the doctor. For Master Joachim I have drawn for St. Christopher's, on grey paper, heightened with white. On the last day of Whitsuntide I was at Antwerp, at the great yearly horse fair. There I saw a great number of beautiful stallions ridden, and 2 stallions in particular were sold for 700 florins. I have taken 1 florin, 3 ort, for prints, and used the money for expenses, 4 stivers to the doctor, 3 stivers for 2 little books. I have dined thrice with Thomason. I have designed 3 dagger grips for him, and he gave me a small alabaster bowl. I have taken the portrait in charcoal of an English nobleman, who gave me 1 florin which I changed for expenses. Master Gerhardt, the miniature painter, has a daughter about 18 years old, called Susanna, who has illuminated a little page with a Saviour, for which I gave her 1 florin. It is very wonderful that a woman's picture should be so good. Have lost 6 stivers at play. I saw the great procession at Antwerp on Holy Trinity Day. Master Conrad has given me a beautiful pair of knives, and so I gave his little old man Life of Our Lady in return. I have taken the portrait in charcoal of Johann, the Brussels goldsmith, likewise his wife's. I have received 2 florins for prints. Also Master Johann, the Brussels goldsmith, paid me 3 Philips florins for what I did for him, namely, the drawing for the seal, and the 2 portraits. I have given the Veronica which I painted in oils, and the Adamantine that Franz did to Johann, the goldsmith, in return for a jacinth, and an agate with a Lucretia engraved in it. Each of us valued his portion at 14 florins. Further, I gave him a whole set of engravings for a ring, and 6 stones, each valued his portion at 7 florins. Gave 14 stivers for 2 pairs of gloves, gave 2 stivers for 2 small boxes, changed 2 Philips florins for expenses. I drew 3 bearing of the cross, and 2 Mount of Olives, on 5 half-sheets. I have taken 3 portraits in black and white on grey paper, also I drew in black and white on grey paper 2 Netherlandish costumes. For the Englishman I have painted his arms in colours, for which he gave me 1 florin. Besides this, one way and another, I have done many drawings, and other things, to serve people, and for the greater part of my work I have received nothing. Andreas of Krakow paid me 1 Philips florin for a shield, and a child's head. Changed 1 florin for expenses. Have given 2 stivers for sweeping brushes. At Antwerp I saw the great procession on Corpus Christi Day, which was very splendid. Gave in the 4 stivers for a tip, and 6 stivers to the doctor, changed 1 florin for expenses, 1 stiver for a box. Have dined 5 times with Thomason, paid 10 stivers to the apothecary, and to his wife 14 stivers for the clyster, and 15 stivers to him for the prescription. Again changed 2 Philips florins for expenses, 6 stivers again to the doctor, and once more 10 stivers for a clyster to the apothecary's wife, and 4 stivers to the apothecary. I gave the monk who confessed my wife 8 stivers. I have given 8 florins for a whole piece of arras, and again for 14 nulls of fine arras, 8 florins, the apothecary 32 stivers for medicines, to the messenger I have given 3 stivers, and the tailor 4 stivers. I have dined once with Hans Fehler, and thrice with Thomason. Gave 10 stivers for packing. On the Wednesday after Corpus Christi, in the year 1521, I gave over my great bale at Antwerp, to be sent to Nuremberg, to the carrier, by name Koens Metz of Schlottersdorf, and I am to pay him for carrying it to Nuremberg 1½ florins for every CWT, and I paid him 1 gulden on account, and he is to hand it over to Herr Hans Imhoff, the elder. I have done the portrait of young Jacob Raelinger at Antwerp, have dined 3 times with Thomason. On the 8th day after Corpus Christi I went with my wife to Mechlin to Lady Margaret, took 5 florins with me for expenses, my wife changed 1 florin for expenses. At Mechlin I lodged with Master Heinrich, the painter, at the sign of the Golden Head. The painters and sculptors made me their guest at my inn, and did me great honor in their gathering, and I visited the Papenreuters, the gunmaker's house, and found wonderful things there. And I have been to Lady Margaret's, and I let her see my Kaiser, and would have presented it to her, but she disliked it so much that I took it away again. And on Friday Lady Margaret showed me all her beautiful things, and among them I saw about 40 small pictures in oils, the like of which for cleanness and excellence I have never seen. And there I saw other good works by Jan van Eyck and Jacopo de Barbari. I asked my lady for Jacopo's little book, but she said she had promised it to her painter. Then I saw many other costly things, and a fine library. Master Hans Papenreuter invited me as his guest. I have had Master Conrad twice, and his wife once, as my guests, also the Chamberlain Stephen, and his wife, both as guests. 27 stivers and 2 stivers for fare. I have taken in charcoal the portrait of Stephen, the Chamberlain, and Master Conrad, the carver, and on Saturday I came back from Mechlin to Antwerp. My trunk started on the Saturday after Corpus Christi week. Changed 1 florin for expenses, gave the messenger 3 stivers. dined twice with the Augustines, dined with Alexander Imhoff, paid 6 stivers, at the apothecary's, dined again with the Augustines. I have drawn in charcoal Master Jacob, and had a little panel made for it, which cost 6 stivers, and gave it to him. I have done the portrait of Bernhard Stecker, and his wife, and gave him a whole set of prints, and I took his wife's portrait again, and gave 6 stivers, for making the little panel, all of which I gave him, and he in return gave me 10 florins. Master Lucas, who engraves in copper, invited me as his guest. He is a little man, born at Leyden, in Holland, and was at Antwerp. I have eaten with Master Bernhard Stecker. Gave 1½ stivers to the messenger. Have taken 1 florin, 1 ort, for prints. I have drawn Master Lucas von Leyden in silver point. I have lost 1 florin, paid the doctor 6 stivers, and again 6 stivers. I gave the steward of the Augustines convent at Antwerp a Life of Our Lady, and 4 stivers to his man. I have given Master Jacob a copper passion, and a wood passion, and 5 other pieces, and 4 stivers to his man. Have changed 4 florins for expenses, gave 2 Phillips florins, for 14 fish skins, made portraits in black chalk of Art Braun, and his wife. I gave the goldsmith who valued the ring for me 1 florin's worth of prints. Of the 3 rings which I took in exchange for prints, the 2 smaller are valued at 13 crowns, but the sapphire at 25 crowns, that makes 54 florins, 8 stivers, and what, amongst other things, the above Frenchman took was 36 large books, which makes 9 florins. Have given 2 stivers for a screw knife. The man with the 3 rings has overreached me by a half. I understood nothing in the matter. I gave 18 stivers for a red cap for my godchild, lost 12 stivers at play, drank 2 stivers, bought 3 fine small rubies for 11 gold florins, won 2 stivers, changed 1 florin for expenses. Dined again with the Augustines, dined twice with Thomason. I gave 6 stivers for 13 porpoise bristle brushes, and 3 stivers for 6 bristle brushes. I have made a careful portrait in black chalk on a royal sheet of the great Anthony Hainault, and I have done careful portraits in black chalk of Braun, and his wife on royal sheets, and I have done another one of him in silver point. He has given me an angel. Changed 1 florin for expenses, paid 1 florin for a pair of shoes, gave 6 stivers for an inkstand. I gave 12 stivers for a case for packing, 21 stivers for 1 dozen ladies' gloves, 6 stivers for a bag, 3 stivers for 3 bristle brushes, changed 1 florin for expenses, gave 1 stiver for a piece of fine red leather. Anthony Hainault, whose portrait I did, has given me 3 Phillips florins, and Bernhard Stecker has made me a present of a tortoise shell. I have done the portrait of his wife's niece, dined once with her husband, and he gave me 2 Phillips florins, gave 1 stiver for a tip. I have given Anthony Hainault 2 books, received 13 stivers for prints. I have given Master Joachim the Huntsgrun woodcut. I have changed 3 Phillips florins for expenses, dined twice with Bernhard Stecker, again twice with Thomason. I have given Jobst's wife 4 woodcuts, gave Friedrich, Jobst's man, 2 large books, gave Glazier Hennick's son 2 books. Rodrigo gave me 1 of the parrots which they bring from Malacca, and I gave his man 3 stivers for a tip. Again dined twice with Thomason, have given 2 stivers for a little cage, 3 stivers for 1 pair of socks, and 4 stivers for 8 little boards. I gave Peter 2 whole sheet engravings, and 1 sheet of woodcut. Again dined twice with Thomason, changed 1 florin for expenses. I gave Master Art, the glass painter, a Life of Our Lady, and I gave Master Jean, the French sculptor, a whole set of prints. He gave my wife 6 little glasses with rose water. They are very finely made. Bought a packing case for 7 stivers, changed 1 florin for expenses, have given 7 stivers for a cut leather bag. Cornelius, the secretary, has given me Luther's Babylonian Captivity. In return I gave him my 3 big books. I gave Peter Poos, the monk, 1 florin's worth of prints. To the glass painter, Hennick, I gave 2 large books, gave 4 stivers for a piece of glazed calico, changed 1 Phillips florin for expenses. I gave 8 florins worth of my prints for a whole set of Lucas's engravings, again changed 1 Phillips florin for expenses. I gave 8 stivers for a bag, and 7 stivers for half a dozen Netherlandish cards, and 3 stivers for a small yellow post horn. I paid 24 stivers for meat, 12 stivers for coarse cloth, and again 3 stivers for coarse cloth. Have eaten twice with Thomason. I gave 1 stiver to Peter, gave 7 stivers for a present, and 3 stivers for zacking. Rodrigo has presented me with 6 ells of coarse black cloth for a cape. It cost a crown an ell. Changed 2 florins for expenses, gave the tailor's man 2 stivers for a tip. I have reckoned up with Jobst and I owe him 31 florins, which I paid him. Therein were charged and deducted 2 portrait heads which I painted in oils, for which he gave me 5 pounds of borax, Netherlandish weight. In all my doings, spendings, sales, and other dealings in the Netherlands, in all my affairs with high and low, I have suffered loss, and Lady Margaret in particular gave me nothing for what I gave her, and did for her. This settlement with Jobst was made on SS. Peter and Paul's day. I gave Rodrigo's men 7 stivers for a tip. I have given Master Hennick an engraved passion. He gave me some burning pastilles. I had to pay the tailor 25 stivers for making up the cape. I have engaged a carrier to take me from Antwerp to Cologne. I am to pay him 13 light florins, each of 24 stivers, and am to pay besides the expenses for a man and a boy. Jacob Raelinger has given me 1 ducat for his charcoal portrait. Gerhard has given me 2 little pots with capers and olives, for which I gave 4 stivers as a tip. Gave Rodrigo's men 1 stiver. I have given my portrait of the Emperor in exchange for a white English cloth which Jacob, Thomason's son-in-law, gave me. Alexander Imhoff has lent me a full 100 gold florins on the eve of Our Lady's crossing the mountains, 1521. For this I have given him my sealed signature, which he will have presented to me at Nuremberg, when I will pay him back with thanks. Gave 6 stivers for a pair of shoes, paid the apothecary 11 stivers, paid 3 stivers for cord. In Thomason's kitchen I gave away a Philip's florin, in leaving gifts, and I gave his maiden daughter a gold florin on leaving. I have dined thrice with him. I gave Jobst's wife a florin and 1 florin in the kitchen for leaving gifts. Also I gave 2 stivers to the packers. Thomason has given me a small jar full of the best Ariac and antidote for poison. Changed 3 florins for expenses, gave the house servant 10 stivers, on leaving, gave Peter 1 stiver, gave 2 stivers for a tip. I gave 3 stivers to Master Jacob's man, 4 stivers for zacking, gave Peter 1 stiver, gave the messenger 3 stivers. On Our Lady's visitation, when I was just leaving Antwerp, the King of Denmark sent for me to come to him at once, to do his portrait, decided in charcoal, and I did the portrait, too, of his servant Anthony, and I had to dine with the king, who showed himself very gracious to me. I have entrusted my bale to Leonhard Dutcher, and given over to him my white cloth. The carrier with whom I bargained did not take me, I fell out with him. Gerhard has given me some Italian seeds. I gave the new carrier to take home the great turtle shell, the fish shield, the long pipe, the long shield, the fish fins, and the 2 little casks of lemons and capers, on Our Lady's visitation day, 1521. Next day we set out for Brussels, on the King of Denmark's business, and I engaged a driver, to whom I gave 2 florins. I presented to the King of Denmark the best pieces of all my prints. They are worth 5 florins. Changed 2 florins for expenses, paid 1 stiver for a dish and basket. I saw, too, how the people of Antwerp wondered very much, when they saw the King of Denmark, that he was such a manly, handsome man, and that he had come hither with only 2 companions through his enemy's country. I saw, too, how the Emperor rode forth from Brussels, to meet him, and received him honorably, and with great pomp. Then I saw the noble costly banquet that the Emperor and Lady Margaret held next day. Paid 2 stivers for a pair of gloves. Her Anthony paid me 12 horn florins, of which I gave 2 horn florins to the painter for the little panel, to paint the portrait on, and 2 horn florins for having colours rubbed for me. The other 8 horn florins I took for expenses. On the Sunday before St. Margaret's Day, the King of Denmark gave a great banquet to the Emperor, Lady Margaret, and the Queen of Spain. Editor's note, probably Eleonora of Portugal, not the Spanish Queen, and invited me, and I dined there also. Paid 12 stivers for the king's frame, and I painted the king in oils. He has given me 30 florins. Editor's note, this painting no longer exists. I gave 2 stivers to the young man called Bartholomew, who rubbed the colours for me. I bought a little glass jar which once belonged to the king, for 2 stivers. Paid 2 stivers for a tip, gave 2 stivers for the engraved goblets. I have given Master Jan's boy 4 half-sheets, and to the master, painter's boy an apocalypse, and 4 half-sheets. Thomas of Bologna has given me 1, or 2 Italian prints. I have also bought 1 for 1 stiver. Master Jobst, the tailor, invited me, and I supped with him. I have paid for the hire of a room at Brussels, for 8 days, 32 stivers. I have given an engraved Passion to the wife of Master Jan, the goldsmith, with whom I dined 3 times. I gave another Life of Our Lady to Bartholomew, the painter's apprentice. I have dined with Herr Nicholas Ziegler, and gave 1 stiver to Master Jan's servant. Because of being unable to get a carriage, I have stayed on 2 days in Brussels, paid 1 stiver for a pair of socks. On Friday morning early I started from Brussels, and I am to pay the driver 10 florins. I paid my hostess 5 stivers more for the single night. From there we rode through 2 villages, and came to Louvain, breakfasted, and spent 13 stivers. Thence we journeyed through 3 villages, and came to Thienan, which is a little town, and lay the night there, and I spent 9 stivers. From there, early on St. Margaret's Day, we travelled through 2 villages, and came to a town which called St. Tryon, where they are building a large, well-designed church tower, quite new. From thence we went on past some poor houses, and came to a little town, Tongren. There we had our morning meal, and spent altogether 6 stivers. From thence we went through a village, and some poor houses, and came to Maastricht, where I lay the night, and spent 12 stivers, and 2 blanki besides, for watch money. Thence we journeyed early on Sunday to Aachen, where we ate, and spent altogether 14 stivers. Thence we travelled to Altenburg, taking 6 hours, because the driver did not know the way, and went wrong. There we stayed for the night, and spent 6 stivers. On Monday early we travelled through Jülich, a town, and came to Bergheim, where we ate, and drank, and spent 3 stivers. Thence we journeyed through 3 more villages, and came to Cologne.